Hi, Luxury Home Show. I'm Gigi.
And I'm Ebba, interior designer from Sigmar London.
Welcome to my home in Chelsea. At that time, a single woman trying to do a project on your own, getting a really good interior designer slash, in many ways, project manager for me was essential.
To revisit a project 8 years later and see that not only has things held up incredibly well, but also did it work? It's also vintage. We like that where I'm from because I do feel it's not about only sustainability, it's about soul.
So the start of the project was in 2016?
2016.
2017. It took 1 year.
Which is not long.
Which is not long now that I know. It was actually a beautiful home before, kept very much to its Victorian details. There was a French family living here. It really didn't need much at all, but it did go through a complete revamp to put what I like to describe as the personal stamp.
You being a person who really likes light, you wanted something that felt fresh, but you also wanted a bit of crispness and a little bit of contemporary. I suggested a tone-in-tone sort of approach, which envelopes more. The gray is a cooler color. We did gray wooden floors. We did different tones of grays throughout the woodwork and joinery meeting the walls. The woodwork and joinery is also slightly contemporary, step from a traditional design. And then it was about opening it up and continuing the light through and then framing the light. So that brings me to the doors because that was a conversation.
When I first saw a mood board, which Ebba did for every single room, I didn't even really know what a mood board was at that stage, but it turns out it's a way to visualize what you're trying to do before you actually do it. It blends in colors and lighting and everything else. And when I first saw the proposal for these doors, I sort of thought, this is not Shoreditch or Soho, this is Chelsea, but actually now I love these doors.
Well, we went on to obviously make more technical explanatory drawing so she got clarity on how they would fit in. But Crystal Doors has many forms and shapes of it, but it was about being able to have these double height, massive glass French doors that lets us light in as much as possible, but also allows you that a little bit of
detail.
crispness. And the brass handle is one of those. So if you look at the door, and it is black and it is metal, but if you add that little bit of brass handle, it ties in with the beautiful detail of a Carl Albrecht handle, which is a completely different kettle of fish.
I guarantee if you don't have an interior designer who knows you well and understands the project and your design aesthetic, I would have never really thought about getting handles like this, because this is, a beautiful Austrian designer who has made several pieces, from the candleware to some of the brass book holders. This, as Ebba just said, it is a bit like jewelry. One doesn't really think about that when you're the owner of the house. You're not thinking about, how do I embellish with these small details,
but also tactility is as you grab it.
Oh yeah, it's beautiful on the fingers.
That feels good on your hand.
It's beautiful on the hands, and the amount of compliments you get for these very small details that generally get overlooked. Would you rather sort of B&Q it or Carl Albrecht it?
That's a very good point of view of where do you spend your money, right? Those little details is what I would push for always. Same thing with, we wanted a statement piece, but you didn't want a chandelier.
No.
And we didn't want a solid lamp. We wanted something else. And to create a chandelier effect with these Michael Anastasiadis gilded ball lights was, I think, one of the best accessories.
One of the best.
Yeah.
One of the best. This whole area, in fact, the amount of compliment. What is this called again? A boo?
This is a banquette.
A banquette. And when Ebba first put this on the mood board, I immediately, there were a number of things where a couple of times I was like, what?
Yeah.
But when this came, I thought, wow, this is like something that will stay with the property. It is gorgeous, and it does touch on something you said earlier about the joinery and some of the woodwork that was done around the property, which is that you've done a masterful job of bringing something modern to a house that was very classic. and yet it still holds both with pride.
That is because instead of just going traditional shaker style, we routed in so we got these sharp edges. Super simple
You routed
little
it
detail.
and you also painted it in a slightly darker gray.
It's a slightly dark, well remembered, slightly darker gray to highlight it. And then also that gives these sharp edges against this very plush, very comfortable.
Do you know how many people come to dinner and the first thing they want to do is sit on that?
Yeah.
No one wants to sit on the chairs. Everyone wants the bench. And it creates this comfort. I never even knew that, this table came from a former property. And it's beautiful. I love Padrana furniture, but actually putting it with this changes the look completely.
Well, the Parada Invisible table is incredibly contemporary. It also bridges traditional with contemporary. It is also you envelope, so you have a corner. People love a corner. And as much as it's also about conversation friendly, intimacy, all of these things, it also just saves you that little bit of space. This is a walk-through layout. And so movement is everything. You need it to be like, I can move, I can feel freely, I can come in from the entrance and walk straight out in the kitchen. Because you have a banquette that pushes the whole dining table towards a corner, and it offers you space.
But it was also a very clever way of turning an 8-seater table into a 10-seater table comfortably.
Yes.
Which I wouldn't have thought of before. So we're sitting now in the dining room, which is also the entrance of the house. So this is actually the first view that you have when you come in, and it leads from here into the sitting room.
The marriage between the living room space, the kitchen, and the outdoors is the dining area. So this is the glue. Now it's also the first view line, the first introduction, and the first frame that you see when you walk in the door. And then first impressions last, so you know you've entered an elegant house with directive lines. So you have the banquette being brassed back, and Michael Anastasiadis chandelier pieces, straight lines. The beautiful detailed brass handles behind me ties it all together. The warmth of the natural wood table and the leather seat is also what welcomes you in. But in general, it's a luxurious introduction, something that feels welcoming.
This kitchen was really meant to feel like a country kitchen in the middle of London. This was a bespoke setting that Ebba did that fit a 90-centimeter stove into this kitchen to create that effect of a beautiful little country kitchen. And sort of the other thing I'd point out, again, back to, do you do this yourself or do you actually get a designer? Ebba knew that I wanted a blue kitchen. But what blue is an open question, as well as I've now learned there are 100 styles of greys. This blue was a blue that Ebba and Sigmar actually made for me that didn't exist before we did this project. And we managed to take also this, which was an antique piece of French furniture, and completely repaint it, bring in some of the detailing that we've discussed to make a beautiful piece that existed in our former home.
Yeah.
Blend in perfectly with what is a bespoke made kitchen.
It's about sustainability, and again, an Aga is amazing, but not only cost, but the energy.
Bad for the environment.
So to think about what you can do. And for us to make a simple stove, but a beautiful stove in itself, fit in like this, to me, it was all about designing an extractor fan cover. And that can sometimes feel or sound like an excessive effort, but it slides on top of an existing extractor fan. This ties it into a unit. It marries the two. It also had little brass detailing, and the little bolts are made to make it look industrial, but it has a simplicity, just like everything else that you like. In our Damo collection, we were looking to create a blue. I felt bridged that between marine blue and classic blue and deep blue with a tint of that green undertone that you really would like to make it feel crisper. If you do have a really nice paint color, and especially if it's darker, that lends itself to upcycling pieces of furniture really well. And I think everybody and everyone should do that everywhere. As an interior designer, you do a job and you think you just hand it over. You do build relationship though, but to revisit a project 8 years later and see that not only has things held up incredibly well, but also did it work? Did it work? Did your advice and your expertise work?
To be truthful, we actually did a refresh on this about 3 years ago,
Yeah.
as one would probably need to do sort of every 5 to 7 years.
It's a good reminder.
Getting a good interior designer is a bit like insurance. You don't actually really realize how much you need it until you don't have it, because you will need to go back and refresh or repair something. The butcher's sink had a little bit of a leak. These are important things, and you need to know who to call, who can I talk to, who's going to be at the end of that phone to help me make those decisions.
To be available is super important to me. People have leaks, people have pets, people have wear and tear, there's all sorts of things, and you need to be able to refresh. It's been a while since I've been back though, so now looking at the rest of it makes me want to see the rest of the house. So do you mind if we take a browse around the rest of it?
By all means.
Let's go.
So I think we met 20 years ago.
Yes, 20 years ago on a flight.
On a plane to Spain.
Yeah.
Literally, we sat next to each other. Ebba had done a couple of projects with me previously that were more, I would put them in the category more of like refurbishments, a couple of rooms and refurbs of properties that I had in the past. But when it came to Chelsea, this was a really big deal for me. It was my first sort of single property, a full refurb. I knew that I needed someone who knew enough about my life, that they knew how I lived, how I worked, but also knew enough about my heritage and history. So I'm half Scandinavian, part South American, and having someone who understood my design sort of aesthetic and preferences, as well as how I live as a person, was critical to that choice, and I don't regret it for a second.
I think as an interior designer approaching this, where we had to honor the envelope of the Victorian building and then still open it up to modern day life and cater for your everyday life. A sustainable longevity quality design that will stand the test of time. Speak for your colors, your brightness, what you wanted, mixing sustainable pieces with natural pieces, with crisp and modern. That was the essence.
At that time, a single woman trying to do a project on your own, trust and having someone who knows the things that are important to you. Getting a really good interior designer slash, in many ways, project manager for me was essential, because there are loads of people who are cash rich and time poor. And at that particular time, I was very much in that circumstance. So handing that over to someone it's a huge responsibility, but when you find the right fit, the joy reaps dividends for years.
So as you enter the living room, I know I keep yapping about the brass detailing, but it is literally one of the things that are allowed in this straightforward layout that we have had to shine. And so the lighting again, right? You still have the Michael Anastasiades globe light in the end. You have the Michael Anastasiades ball light cluster that has a chandelier finish. And then when you come here, this sort of bubble light chandelier, which is very contemporary. That ties together with the brass detailing again, even from the Carl Oberk bookends that also become jewelry, to one of these small containers by Carl Oberk, vintage pieces again that add a little bit of soul in it. And we go back to the handles. I know they are just handles, but it feels great. And it's not where people consider to spend sometimes. And they're even on the door handles in this house. Everything feels beautiful. We had a lot of conversation about sofa design and coffee tables. I'm a coffee table lady. I like clean coffee tables. I like coffee tables that have function. I think I had never experienced the need for feet up on, because I'm a tiny person. As you can see, I sit like this, or I sit up curled up in a corner. She would sit like this, but you're rarely just one person. So if you're more than one person who's also tall, namely not me, then I can hardly reach it. But you know what? A really clever solution. An ottoman with a tray on it. It works for a reason, people, and I've learned my lesson, so now I'm the richer for it. As watching TV is not everything you do in the living room. It's also about, well, living room, family room, reception room, whatever you call it. It's about people. It's about conversation. And having conversation areas is important. This is a chair size that suits me a little bit more. It's also vintage. We like that where I'm from because I do feel it's not about only sustainability, it's about soul. 1930s chairs are perfect for conversation. I'm perfectly comfortable, I'm perfectly enveloped. It's also allowing me to face the room. I feel that I'm participating and I can watch TV. I think that wherever I am in this house, it all boils down to still this open view line that is riddled with these small jewelry pieces that leads you straight outside to the garden wherever you are. So walking from the living room to the dining area, it reminds me to point out, so obviously the design itself of all the joinery is mirrored through both of the rooms on each side of this beautiful archway. But it's also the fact that the banquette, which is in between them, hides some very clever storage. So here underneath, very simple to access, is a little storage for shoes or whatever you want to store. Storage is everything to cater for everyday life. It really is a mantra. What do you do the first 30 seconds when you enter your house? You put away your keys, and if you're a person who uses sunglasses or glasses every day, why not put them on display? And to me, this is exactly what we did, and it's about catering for the person that you work for. Every day you can be like, right, I need to put my glasses on. If it's your everyday frame that you change, or if it's sunglasses, it doesn't really matter. But as you come in, you have it and it's on display because this is how you live. So let me take you down to garden level to go through the bedroom. So coming down the stairs, the first thing is a guest bathroom and the master bedroom. So the guest bathroom, just conveniently just as you come down the stairs, it's long and narrow, but it feels crisp, fresh, and warm. The master bedroom needed to feel enveloping and cozy. And so we worked with a really dark blue, which is brave sometimes, but this is such a beautiful dark blue. Color drenched, but combined a silk wallpaper with a painted wall. Built-in wardrobes that envelope a bed. It's not always for everyone, but it is a really practical way to do it. And if you color drench it, it becomes one with the room. It is also enveloping, and if you oversize the headboard, which we have with a beautiful silver fabric texture, again, it has its own identity. It feels cozy, and it's got elegance. So for this property, the larger master bathroom, we did as a walk-through bathroom with 2 task areas and a pocket door for the adjacent room. And the adjacent room, obviously, with this kind of property, used to be a second bedroom. She wanted a dressing area. We walled and paneled the room with closets and practical, useful storage. We have complete openable sliding doors out into the garden. We're playing on the view-through. Even if the view-through is a bathroom, it does bring the light all the way back into the master bedroom. Then we have small accent details, and guess what? It's brass. But to have a brass hook on the wall where you can put whatever you're going to wear for the next day, or put your suitcase for your packing, it's practical and useful. Coming out from the dressing room, that also leads out obviously into the common parts, just like the master bedroom, is the third bedroom. Third bedroom that could be a nursery or a guest bedroom. It plays for both here actually, with a sofa bed and a clever hidden closet behind the door, and a really good repetition of this nice packing hook. Gigi works here often. It's a really nice place for a home office, and it leads you out to the garden again and the 2 levels. Let's go have a look. So getting out into the garden, the 2 levels, is really common in cities like London. A comfortable place to sit and just have a cup of tea or a conversation, or just bask in the sun, or to sit down and have a barbecue. One thing I really like is that you can also kit out with the smallest details. This is a fig tree. I think squirrels feast on these most. This is a money tree. I don't know why it's called a money tree, but it is beautiful. And it's to spend on vases or planters. So this is Caspar Wirtz's planter or bowl that we put in a money tree in. And I think it really adds character. It's a great space to get a sunny day.
Thanks for coming. Hope you enjoyed the tour.
And if you have any interior design questions about Sigmar London, check the details below. Bye.
Hi Luxury Home Show. I'm Sasha Berger, founder of Honeybee Interiors. Welcome to the Highgate project in North London. I'd love to show you around. Come in. The client and me were totally aligned and had the same vision, so it was really collaborative and great fun to work with.